Hello, it's Flora again. Thank you for coming into our channel again for the second video of our video series on piano playing. In the last video, I talked about legato techniques, and I had a student who came to me and asked me whether she could use all the suggestions and demonstration that we have in this video series for her external diploma exam. My answer was yes, of course, you can do so. I hope that all these infos that we are giving you will help you, especially in the Viva Voce segment in the external music teaching exam. And so we will continue today with another popular techniques, and this is definitely very frequently used in all piano repertoires, be it the beginner's repertoire and also the advanced repertoire. Now we are going to start talking about staccato as what it means and how we perceive the staccato dots that we see on the score. And just start off with discussing about the meaning first. Staccato means short and detached, which we normally tell the young beginners or any beginners in piano. And how do we then be able to recognize where on the score that we should play the notes in staccato and where in the score that we should play the notes in legato? And it's normally represented by some dots, and students normally recognize it straight away that some notes need to be played in a short manner. But take note that in the piano playing manner, it may mean differently, especially on how you use the hitting movement or whether you do not use the hitting movement at all when you see the dots. So let's start talking about the hitting movement first. And so when we talk about the hitting movement of your fingers, we normally will then focus on the joint where you generate the hitting movement. First is from the knuckle, where normally you use that to generate the hitting movement of your fingers. And the next is the wrist part, where we generate the hitting movement of your hand. So this type of staccato is called the wrist staccato or the hand staccato. And next is the elbow. And normally this kind of staccato is called the forearm staccato, where we generate the hitting movement from the elbow. Now, let's start off the finger staccato first. Normally for finger staccatos, it is more applicable to rapid, repetitive movement of a single note. For example, like this. So basically you can see that the movement is generated from the knuckle, and you normally need to change your fingers. It's difficult to only use one finger to do the finger staccato. So normally we either change among 3 fingers like this, or 4 fingers, or even 5 fingers. So this is a finger staccato. And I'm going to get on to the next staccato because this staccato is more oftenly used in the piano playing, and that is what we call the wrist staccato or hand staccato. And so to start off explaining about this staccato, one tends to make sure that the forearm part is not quite used. And so because a lot of students tend to play it in this way, because their hands are still weak, so they tend to use the forearm to lift the hands up. And so make sure you keep the forearm straight. And one way to help you is to put your forearm on the flat surface, maybe the table, and then you can then make sure that the forearm is kept flat without lifting up as you do the knocking movement. So that helps to build your muscles around your wrist to be able to lift up your hand easier. And then so to start off practicing the wrist staccato, best is to look at the 5-finger position. And you can do so with just one perfect fifth like this. You can do so, but make sure you don't make your wrist too rigid. In that sense is that you are doing the perfect fifth interval in a very rigid way like this. Make sure you still have to keep your hand supple, and then there's a certain downward movement as you go down, and keep the hitting movement here, and then use the wrist to pull it up. So like this, down, then pull up. One more time. You can do a few of this fifth ascending like this. Or just simply playing one note. The best note to use is the note that is played by your third finger, because it's in the middle of the hand. It kind of gives you the center of the gravity of your hand. And of course then you can proceed to playing scales. And when you know the hitting movement quite well, you can then straight proceed to playing the whole scale. And slowly extend the octaves that you can manage. And then so this is the hand staccato. For some of the advanced playing, you can then look at certain ways to practice the sixes. For example, like this. Or this is a good way to practice and prepare for repertoire like this. For example, like the Beethoven Opus 2 No. 3, 4th movement. And then so for this kind of advanced repertoire, you definitely would be able to play it well if you have practiced your sixes. Replicating that interval of a six for this chord. Yes, so you see that this is a series of first inversion chord, and you would have practiced and then strengthen your stretch for the sixth as well before you start to play this. So that is one of the wrist staccato in the famous repertoire. Or sometimes, of course, when you practice something like this, like this is a certain undulatory movement that you use. As I mentioned before, instead of making the hand too rigid, take note that you have to make sure you use your forearm and wrist to support the wrist staccato. And then the main issues that most students are facing here is they lift up the hand a little bit too soon. Like for example, let's say you have semi-quavers, sixes that you need to play. You make sure that you have to put it down and then keep it low and then lift it up at the right moment like this. Instead of lifting the hand too soon like this. And then you'll find that you are not using the wrist staccato that effectively, and instead you are kind of thrusting down instead of hitting it this way. And then so this kind of undulatory movement especially is also helpful for rapid, repeated single notes like the upper sonata, first movement. Now, take take note that when I play the repeated E flat with the single second finger, I actually use a little bit of the forearm to help up, with my rapid kind of speed on managing this E flat. Otherwise, your hand will become tired too soon. And so for this wrist staccato, and I kind of want to mention to you, as I mentioned earlier, that you have to take note, not all staccatos gives you the meaning of playing the staccato in the hitting movement. So for example, like Beethoven Opus 14 number 2. Now you have a few chords that starts this movement. If you find that if you're going to do it in that hitting movement that I said, it doesn't kind of help you to project the sound that you want. And then so in this case, that for the staccato dots that Beethoven has written here, is merely just telling you to make the chords short. Yeah, it does not really give you the indications that you must have a hitting movement when you approach the chord. Because if you do it this way, you will find that it is hard to keep all the notes together, in one level in terms of the tone projection. And it's difficult for you to bring out the top notes as well. So in this case, these staccatos here, dots here, mainly mean just making the chord short. And of course, for beginners, it takes a while and experience for beginners to understand which are the dots that are meant for the hitting movement, wrist staccato, forearm staccato, or even finger staccato, and which are the dots that just mean short. I think it's a matter of listening more to performances and make your discretion whether you want to project the tone using the hitting movement or you want to just merely make the chords or the notes short. And so for the next staccato that I am going to continue with my explanation on the staccato today is the forearm staccato. Now for forearm staccato, as I said, it is a movement, in that case we'll go back to the hitting movement that is generated from the elbow. And so for a start, the easier way to practice forearm staccato is to practice the octave. And so you can start off with single hand first, of course. You can then expand to play the first 5 notes of C major in double octaves. And of course, you can carry on practicing it in 1 octave and then subsequently expand it to 2 octaves. And there's also one other way that you can practice just on one single note instead of worrying about going to other notes. That is just to choose one note that you are comfortable and then play it in a different rhythm each time you finish 1 or 2 bars. So in this case, I choose to demonstrate with 1 bar each, like this. You start with a crotchet beat and go on to quaver, triplets, and subsequently semi-quaver rhythm. Ready? So this is one way of practicing for your forearm staccato. At the same time, You can also find yourself counting as you increase the notes from a crotchet to quavers to triplets to semiquavers. I will demonstrate one more time. So this is one way of strengthening your forearm and also practicing for speed as well. One of the famous repertoire is from Chopin's third scherzo. So that were the staccatos that I would like to bring to you today. They were the finger staccatos, the hand staccato or wrist staccato, the forearm staccatos. And remember, I mentioned about being descriptive on the staccato dots that you see on the score. So some dots are meant for staccatos that you use hitting movements to project the sound, and some staccatos just merely mean to make the note short. And then you will have to use your own decision and your own listening experience. Sometimes when we talk about music or making a decision on the techniques that we want to use to play, it's very much kind of rely on the past experience, especially listening to concerts, listening to the performances on YouTube and on social media. It slowly then influences us to think in a certain way, to develop our musical taste. Of course, hopefully it will become better and better, and we'll be able to improve the sound that we project through our performance with the very secured and very firm techniques that we developed through these years. So till then, we'll see you again for more piano techniques. So the next techniques that we are bringing to you is the rotary movement. So stay tuned, we'll see you again. Goodbye.